You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Walker Howard made it official. He has committed to Ole Miss. So let's go to Oxford to see what the reaction is like there and what that means for the Rebs, short and long term. Our buddy Neal McCready from Rebel Grove joins us. Neal, thanks as always, man. How are you?
Matt, I'm good. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. So I had kind of first gotten word about Walker visiting Ole Miss, and that this was really, really serious on Saturday. How quickly did this play out from your vantage point?
So when I heard he was getting in the portal, I remembered that Ole Miss had been very interested in him a year ago and just unable to get a lot of traction on that recruiting. So I checked with some people over there and was told, hey, the moment he's officially in the portal, we'll move quickly, and that's exactly what happened. And they got him on campus. I guess he got in the portal on a Wednesday. He was on campus on Friday until Saturday. They made him a giant priority. They had a huge vacancy. They might have a huge logjam at quarterback. Going into the weekend, he was a guy they really, really loved out of high school and when he went to LSU. And once he decided to jump in the portal, they moved fast, and they made it happen pretty quickly, as things in the portal tend to go.
Okay, so you just alluded to something there where I wasn't going to go right away, but I will now. You said they had a big vacancy. They might have a big log jam. Can you please elaborate on what this means for the number situation, what could potentially be coming there at Ole Miss?
So I don't know the exact timing. I've heard tomorrow, and maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, there are a whole lot of people that are wrong, which is possible, but it's not likely at this point, Matt. You know how this stuff works.
Sure.
The word is Spencer Sanders, the Oklahoma State quarterback for the last 3.5, 4 years, is transferring here. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining, and he took a visit. I lose track of time, Matt. A week ago, 2 weeks ago,
Right.
somewhere in there. He visited earlier this month, I guess, and it's about a week ago. And the word is he's coming. And so, obviously, Jaxson Dart started all 13 games for Ole Miss last year. You guys saw him in Baton Rouge. I thought Jaxson had a really good season for a 19-year-old in his first year in the SEC, first year in a new system. I knew there was some frustration at times with him with decision-making, holding the ball too long, some things of that nature. But I was not surprised at all to see Ole Miss go aggressively after a young quarterback like Walker Howard. I can't lie to you, Matt, and tell you that I'm not surprised by Ole Miss going after Spencer Sanders. It doesn't make sense if you're trying to come up with a scenario where all three of those guys are still on the roster when the season rolls around in August.
So the odd man out has to be Jaxson Dart.
Has to be. Logically.
Right.
I mean, here's the logic on that, right? Is you don't bring Spencer Sanders, a 23-year-old with all that experience, onto your program, onto your campus to not win the job and to potentially be a guy that's kind of a distraction in the locker room. You don't get Walker Howard to leave a place that his father played, that he presumably liked. Everything I've heard is that everything about Walker Howard's LSU experience was very positive, including the overwhelming majority of his football experience. It was just a simple fact that next season he was probably going to be a third-team guy again, and it's hard to get meaningful reps in practice as a third-team guy anywhere. There's just a limited number of reps in practice, and at LSU you've got Jaden Daniels, you've got Garrett Nussmeier, you've got 12 games they're getting ready for. The third-team quarterback getting a lot of reps is not something that's a high priority on the practice plan. So, he's not going to leave LSU, a place that he presumably loves, for Ole Miss, a place that's brand new to him, so that he can be the third-team quarterback. That just doesn't make any sense. So you have to do the math here.
All right, Neal McCready's with us from Rebel Grove on Twitter, at Neal McCready. So when you do the math, that would mean clearly Sanders is coming in, provided he does. Walker's coming in. Walker's not going there to be the third-string quarterback, as you just said, so Jaxson Dart presumably would leave. Is Dart shouldering the blame there in Oxford for the second half of the season slide?
I can't say that, and no one has tried to put that on him yet. But I think a lot of us who observed the season those of us who are objective and have two eyes would fight back on that. It's difficult for me to pin any of what happened in the second half of the season on Jaxson Dart. In fact, I thought Jaxson played pretty well in a lot of the second half of the season. He's not the reason that LSU skull-drugged them in the second half in Baton Rouge. He's not the reason that Arkansas jumped out to a 42-6 lead in the first half in Fayetteville. He's not the reason that was just an unprepared football team in the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. You can't blame him for those things. Was he great against Alabama? No, but he was pretty good, and he's not the reason they didn't win the game. It was a really close game. I think you could question some coaching decisions in that game. I think you can just point out that it was a very competitive game between two teams fighting for life in the SEC West, and Alabama came out on top, as Alabama is apt to do.
Right.
So I can't blame Jaxson Dart for any of that, especially when you factor in, once again, this is a 19-year-old guy playing in his first season in this league, and this is a really difficult league to adjust to.
Let's assume, and maybe we can have this conversation formally whenever all of this does play out, however it plays out, but if that scenario that you just described plays out, Walker's going, Spencer Sanders is expected to commit, if that happens and Jaxson Dart leaves, does Walker Howard have a legitimate chance to win the starting job in 2023?
I mean, I think he would get that opportunity, but look, if they bring in Spencer Sanders, and this is just my opinion, Matt, and I'm going to freely tell you that I could be wrong, that when you cover Lane Kiffin, you don't get a lot of insight. You don't get any insight. You have to interpret a lot of things. You don't talk to anyone on the staff. It's a very closed up shop. Gets more closed up by the year. So maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, but I'm guessing that if they're bringing in Spencer Sanders, they're bringing him in to be the starting quarterback. Now, he's had a history with some injury issues, including this past season where, Oklahoma State season sort of unraveled when he got hurt. He uses his feet a lot, and that's good for him sometimes. It has also led to him getting hit, getting in trouble. Most teams, LSU included, right, used their backup quarterback a lot last season. Ole Miss was one of the few teams that didn't need to use its backup quarterback because Jaxson Dart was able to stay pretty healthy. But most teams have to use their backup quarterback. And so, my guess is that Walker Howard's going to take meaningful snaps next season, and he, in this scenario, would absolutely be the quarterback of the future starting in 2024.
Neal, with what Ole Miss has done in the portal this offseason, how close are they to competing in the West?
Well, they still have a lot of work to do in the portal. I expect some more activity over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours. I expect a lot of activity in May, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They lost another linebacker today in Ashanti Sistrunk, who got into the portal. They're having to do a lot of rebuilding. I think some of that is intentional. They brought in Pete Golding from Alabama. They're revamping their defensive staff. How close are they to competing? Look, we just talked about the quarterback situation. Quinshon Judkins is back at running back. They've added a couple of receivers that they're excited about, but that are really unproven. Their offensive line should be good. It probably needs a little more depth for it to be great. And then defensively, they're just such an incomplete right now that I don't know how in the world you could possibly judge them. They're one of several teams in the league that it's going to be really difficult when people, do these spring football previews where they're talking about what a team looks like. I mean, it's just going to be impossible really to do that with Ole Miss because I think they're going to be so involved in the portal in May.
The level of drama just certainly went up around Ole Miss. Walker Howard coming in, and we are going to keep an eye on Spencer Sanders in that situation and what that may mean for the Rebs as well and that entire roster. Neal McCready from Rebel Grove. He's on Twitter at Neal McCready. I'll give him a follow there. We appreciate the time, man. Never boring in these parts. We'll keep in touch.
Hey, it's always a pleasure to be on your show. I'm a big fan of your work. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.